this is the complete opposite of my last review. Before, we had a toy from a Generations toy line that was actually 2 toys. And it was good. And now we have this. Alright, like before, let's do a little history on the character in case some of you are uninitiated. So this iteration of Brawl is from the live-action movies, specifically Transformers 2007. And he only appeared in the final act and was killed by the main character's car. So, yeah, he only really got like 3 toys before this one. Yes, let's go look at those. Alright, so first off, let's look at the little Legends lad. And he was cast in a very ugly green, with the smallest amount of gold to break that up. Also, strangely enough, he was only available in multi-packs or Japan. Alright, so going up a couple size classes to the deluxe, and it's already better, as you'd expect. It had articulation and paint, and a not awful green, although it wasn't perfect. It had quite a few quality issues. Mainly, the shoulder tabs didn't peg in to the hole, which got very frustrating very quickly if you tried to pose the arms. The other issue was that it had automorph in its chest, which, not that big a deal, except if it is, because the gears are made of clear plastic. So, yeah, have fun with that figure in about 6 years. Alright, that's now. Alright, going up another couple size classes to the leader class figure, which is a bit strange, because he really didn't do anything in the film to deserve getting a leader class figure. There are many other characters who did, but alas, here we are. So the leader version is an improvement over the Deluxe, while still keeping a similar silhouette, which makes sense considering they're the same character. And this version has lights and sound gimmicks, and automorph sections. And I don't know if those are better or not, but they're there. Vehicle mode is just accurate, but you do have clear missile pods this time, because of light-up gimmick, but that isn't in exchange for a proper mine clearance kit like from the film. But I think that's enough about the old toys. So let's just move on to this thing. So this version of Brawl definitely got a visual upgrade at least. I mean, lots of sharp angles and mechanical detail everywhere, and his general shape and proportions are more accurate. I'd say better, but I don't know if they are better. I mean, they are better, but not that much better. I mean, his lower legs are no longer twice as wide as his hips, which is a big plus. And a lot of it's a lot more streamlined, especially the backpack, considering what it was on the previous toys, which was just a brick. So let's focus in on the head and torso of this guy for a minute, because it's actually not awful. The head itself feels a lot more squished and compact than the other ones, even though it's probably larger than all of them. And I think this is because they actually went to the trouble of giving him his correct face shape and a boatload of detail in there as well. So much so you can barely see his eyes, but they are there. And in comparison, the old head design was just almost like a brick with Brawl-esque features thrown onto it. And on either side of the head, you got these tank treads, which actually look pretty dope, because they're integrated into the body now instead of just flipped on top of the tank. And they're at an angle which blends it with the torso really well, and it just feels right. And the rest of the torso is actually kind of uneventful, but it's still lots of detail in there, so it's pretty interesting. The only real thing is cowcatcher things sticking out like little arms. Alright, so speaking of arms, let's move over to the actual ones, because this is where things start to get a bit messy. Starting with the shoulders, they are a mess, but they're accurate, and they actually, once you get over their general look, they're not too bad, because they're pretty skeletal, and it just kind of looks like his shoulder armor just was too big and drooped down his arm. But below the elbow is where it gets a bit rough. So the detail of the arm itself is actually pretty good. You can see the silver in there painted in on top of the green. It really brings out the arm, but that also brings out the fact that they're just encased in vehicle shell. That's even more apparent when you see that there's just some just hanging off the arm. And, I mean, at least it's not floppy, but it's still there. I'll briefly address the weapons, because the weapons themselves actually look okay. The claw itself is pretty cool, especially when plugged into his arm. The gun's not bad, it just bugs me that it it's kind of off-center. So with the upper torso pretty much covered, let's move down to his lower half. His thighs actually look not too bad. They are a bit short, but they have a nice roundness to them, but also keeping all the spikiness and sharpness of the rest of the figure. Continuing downward, we've got these legs that are pretty chunky and not too bad looking, honestly. They still have brick quality, but they're not as bad. His feet look pretty good too. Paint on there is pretty good. They almost feel out of place because there's so much silver on them. Now, what is out of place is, well, that. All the kibble on the back of his legs. It just sits there like the arm kibble. Designers clearly didn't want to figure out a better place for it, or didn't try, or both. And it just makes the legs seem like super flat and hollow, which sucks. And I mean, it doesn't help that they are hollow from the back. This also isn't great because it affects his knee joint from going a full 90 degrees. It's like 80. And also, these side panels will flop around like no tomorrow. They're just held up there by friction and whatever you have him sit on. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Oh well, between his legs. The main tank turret's just dangling there. At least it doesn't move at all. Who thought this was a good idea? You would have been better out just making a handheld weapon. Just making it removable. Would that have been accurate? No, but this isn't accurate in the first place, so it wouldn't have been much of a difference. This also seems like such a downgrade from the older toys, which all did something creative with it. Like the Legends figure had it embedded into the arm, and the Deluxe had it on the side of his arm in classic Megatron styles, and it could be flipped around if you wanted the quad-barreled gun like this one. And the later class had it swing around on his hip for some big Armada Megatron vibes, but without the Minicon ports. Hell, even the fast-action Battler toy dealt with this turret better, and that was just a solid piece connected to a panel. Why they couldn't have figured out something better to do with this turret on this toy is beyond me. All it does is hurt this figure. Now, just to finish up with this robot mode, I'm just going to quickly look at the articulation. Ball joint at the head, ball joint on these things here, and on the plows. Arms of swivel on either side. They're kind of weird, but they work. Swivel in the arm, as well as side-to-side movement, and a 90-degree elbow. Hips are kind of your standard universal hips. Swivel in the knee, and well, not quite 90. And the toes don't really have anything when they're pegged in. I mean, you can unpeg them, and then they have some back and forth, but that's mainly for transformation. Alright, so vehicle mode. It's a tank. I mean, before we can really get into it, you can plug the weapons on top, and it looks alright. Back to the tank itself. It is an A1 Abrams tank, but it's very heavily modified with what they call stealth armor, mine plow, a dual-barreled anti-aircraft turret, and missile pods on either side of that turret. And it's all done up pretty nicely. The one thing you might notice about this thing is that it's kind of a brick, which is not really something you want from a tank. When you get a toy tank, you'd expect it to have a rotating turret, another rotating turret, a turret that goes up and down. I mean, the missile pods here are on ball joints, but you can't aim them straight, and then the plows themselves are on ball joints as well. The rest of these turrets don't move. Well, I mean, this one does. But the instructions tell you to plug it in, so it doesn't move. And there's a reason for that. Because as soon as you turn it, you can see all the gaps. Yeah, that's another thing with this vehicle mode. There are gaps out the wazoo. You can see some there, because the turret doesn't sit flat. And if you look underneath this thing, yeah, you can just see right through it. The front is alright. When you look at it from the front, it's fine, especially if you have the missile pods actually situated. I mean, the worst part is the little head thing there, which why they decided to make a gap and not, like, a cover is beyond me. And then the gaps are just everywhere. This gap on the side here can kind of be filled in, but it's a matter of unplugging the front and then pushing the arms down, which causes this to just not plug it in at all. I mean, you can kind of plug it in, but the more you plug it in, the higher this goes, so it's not even really worth it, because you can still see the hands anyways. I think the real kicker to this is that there is a turning mechanism for the transformation to rotate this turret around, but they decided to lock it in place for some reason. I think that's about it for this guy. I covered everything that I wanted to cover, I think. This is not great. I mean, it's a fine display piece if you're just going to display it from the front in either robot mode or tank mode. It's fine. Not completely accurate, but probably better and more size accurate, at least, to anything we've gotten previously. It's disappointing. But at the same time, since this is only the second review, it's somehow going to get the highest it's ever going to get on any list, which is second overall, and first for Studio Series, because it's the only one I've done so far, which is higher than he deserves, but it's happening anyways, so. Anyways, let's go spin that wheel and see what we're doing next. Alright, so it looks like we're taking a trip to the world of Japanese exclusive lines and updated mini-bots with GDO Swerve. So, you know, like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, all that type of stuff. I'll see you all then. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Mythic_years. I post things there sometimes. And if you want to talk Transformers, there's a Discord server I moderate in the description below. Feel free to join. Post a lot of my behind-the-scenes stuff in there and all that jazz. So, later.